How many of you own your own pinball machines? No. You guys want to?
Yeah.
What are your price ranges? What are you guys looking? Are you looking at new stuff? Or are you looking at some of the older stuff?
I mean, the new stuff, it's, it seems like it hits like $8,500 if you want like a nice new machine. But some of the old stuff that still looks fun is like within an acceptable price range. What's like the like top 3 to 5 problems if you're looking at a machine that somebody's that's 15,
Marvin
20
operates
years
a
old.
lot of the newer Sterns. I haven't had a whole lot of issues with the newer Sterns because I only had like one. I had a Metallica and I had a Bonelli is what I had. But for the most part, whether it's a brand new Stern or whether it's a Williams game, Bally Williams game that somebody went through from top to bottom and redid, you're going to have very few issues. He might have the newer Sterns have a problem with their coil stops, right? They break right away. You got to change those. Their balls are crap.
Yeah.
Some of the light boards on some of the games, some of the light boards had some issues with some circuit boards. Once they usually find a defect like that, they will replace them. Some places actually will warranty their games even longer past the warranty period just because they know they have an issue with some of the games. So what's funny is that Judge Dredd, back when I was collecting 25 years ago, Marvin used to have a show over at Amedio's on in Cuyahoga Falls, a pizza place that was across from the Beach Place. There was a hall over there, and it was the Akron Pinball Show. And I remember like leaving on a Saturday afternoon, and people would have these marked down to like $750, $800 because Judge Dredd and Demo Man, nobody wanted either one of them. Whereas an Addams Family, a Twilight Zone, something like that was in the $2,500, $3,000 range. Some of your mid-range DMD games were $1,500, $1,800. This was like now that it's good. People buy games because they're nostalgic or because they like the way the game. A lot of times they like it because of the theme. Right. So your pinball manufacturers always try to tie these, sell more titles than just your average game that didn't have a theme whatsoever. So in the 90s, 80s, 90s, there was a lot of movie themed games, and they found they did very well. Today it's Stern does a lot of rock band themes and movies. Jersey Jack is going on with Harry Potter. That's got to be a big seller, no?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But if you buy a newer game, you're going to spend more money. But chances are it's going to have a warranty, and you shouldn't have too many issues. I recommend buying from Stern or Jersey Jack. I'm not a big fan of the boutique pinball companies that just started making games yet. They haven't got everything hammered out as how they should. Their build quality, I think, needs to be addressed.
It's mostly a lot of software problems they have. More than anything, that's where Stern has a lot of the beat is the software. So this other stuff, it can be glitchy and you may just a ball gets stuck in this hole. You turn it on and off, and it's fine again for 10 games, but then it doesn't again. It's just stuff that's like that. Especially Americans like that a lot. And the spooky, I laugh about it. I mean, they're great games, but I had my Scooby-Doo's over there. I had to put a power supply in it when we got it here. And I also had to go home and get another board to put in it because the board broke. I mean, I had a Halloween, it took 4 boards all the time. I mean, it's always a little bit of something with them, it seems like. I mean, but they got great things. I think home environment, though, probably fine. I mean, you might eventually, but like this continuous play, not going to happen.
I had TNA at the house for 6 months. Never one issue. Put it in the bar for 2 days. 2 days, and it was done. I think I'll fix it.
Well, a lot of that happens at shows too, where you bring a game and it was bulletproof at your home for the last 2 years. You bring it here, A, you get a lot of people playing it, beating on it. It's on for a lot more hours. B, the voltage drops down on some of these games because there's so many on at once in the same location that the flippers aren't as strong. Things start to they get abused more just because of that. So.
Yeah, speaking of voltage, if you're running it at home, like, are we talking like like 800 watts, 1200 watts? Like what sort of
Pinball's used very little compared to like an arcade game.
Like, okay,
The arcade games, it was a big CRT tube screen,
right.
and it was like you had every TV on in the house. It was just, it would just draw so much juice. These in standby mode use less than a half an amp, just sitting there, just
So
and when you're playing, it might be. I think the main fuse is 7 amps or 3.5. 7 amps is the 240 version. 3.5 might be your standard one.
really not much.
No, not much juice at all. And even, like I used to have 30 games. I currently have 20 in my game room right now. And when I have people over, I have no problem with just going and turning every game on, because when people come over, I don't want them to have to fumble for a switch. I don't want them to have to second guess whether the game's working or not. So I just turn all my games on and just let everybody play whatever they want. And I don't have any. My bill's not excessive. It's not crazy. So
And you're not popping breakers.
no. But to answer your question about the new versus old, when you buy something like this one's been well maintained or maybe even restored. I don't know
Yeah,
what.
this is clear. This is Andy's first restore.
Andy's first restore.
It's clear coded.
Right. When somebody goes through it that knows what they're doing and they rebuild mechanisms that wear out, they rebuild connectors for the general illumination that get hot and burn up. Once they've gone through all that stuff, then they're pretty much
Yeah, I was
done.
just going to do that to kind of he can talk about
Yeah,
these
it's like
boards compared to
older
what you would see in a Stern
And
pinball.
That's another thing now is that 20-something years ago, you had to find boards and to replace ones that went bad, or have yours repaired. If they were missing, you were screwed. You had to buy another machine or find boards from another machine because there just wasn't any out there. Now there's companies.
like reflow and like solder joints that broke and cracked.
Well, a lot of times people do stupid things and they put fuses in that are too high. They put an automotive fuse from the garage in their, in their board.
instead of fixing the problem.
It's a
that's
20
not-
amp, and they put that in there. And now instead of the board just blowing the fuse, now it smoked a bunch of components in that line. And now you need to track it down as to how far it went through the whole circuit board. With your main processing unit, your MPU or your CPU, they have batteries on them to keep your settings. So you keep it on free play. You don't have to keep changing if you want it on 5-ball instead of 3-ball. Everything you change can be kept in the settings by the battery. It holds it in memory. Well, people didn't know that there was batteries in them. The batteries would leak, alkaline would run down the board, and then it would destroy the board. But now there are so many aftermarket alternatives that you can replace boards for people that don't know how to work on them. And there's enough people out here that do know how to work on them. If you want to retain the original quality of your board, it's in good shape, you send it out and have somebody repair it. And that way, when you get it back, it'll be done correctly. Because there is something to be said for having your original boards are usually of better quality than some of the replacements are. Or at least that's been my opinion. But the fact that you can actually buy replacements is great in itself. So water. What, you guys are looking for a machine? No, yes, maybe.
I'm wondering how you moved that so quickly from way over there to over here.
This is a dolly.
Because
Yeah.
the couple I have right there or something else can move.
Yeah, right underneath.
Well, and that one's not light. That's a heavy one.
Yeah.
It's got
Heavy
so much.
form.
It's got so much going on with that thing that. What's wrong?
No, I said
Is that specifically like a pinball dolly?
No, that's a.
Automotive?
Yeah, you just need to put the 2 screws. Well, your whole. You got are these good? Yeah. I just want to make sure that you're.
I have a couple in my basement.
They make ones that.
Well,
I have
the
a
difference
track
between
that's
the coil.
on Amazon.
Like this.
I mean, to move this.
Oh.
Take the legs off. Put it on drop the head.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, they wouldn't deviate because they're the same size coil.
It's already over here.
Yeah, they're not. Stern didn't change coil sizes.
no, but we're using. I think this is a Stern bracket onto a Williams.
Well, and I just looked through my box of rubbers because that's where they have. I've thrown some of those flipper plates in there before, and I know there was one in there. But the last time I went for a service call, I threw it out and just put fresh rubbers in there, and away I went. So a lot of times I carry my service tools with me in the truck, and I have some of that stuff. When I replace them for a customer, a lot of times when you go to rebuild a flipper, the only thing bad will be your coil stop or your coil sleeve. Sometimes the linkage might have some wear in the linkage, and you buy a rebuild kit that contains all those parts, and you can just change them out and make your flippers feel fresh and new. I've been buying lately from Pinball Life the entire plates that come preloaded with the coils and the switches and everything, and they're just they're tighter, they're stronger, they just feel better to me, and it's easier to change when I go to change them out. But to answer your question, this is a Harbor Freight dolly, and what we all do with them is you normally
Go straight up.
the handle goes right here, and because of that, when you get up to the coin door, this part doesn't get far enough underneath the pinball machine. So what we do is we cut and weld, or we bend the handles so you can get underneath. They make specific pinball dollies.
I've got one with the tracks going down the steps. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like I was telling him, for me to even think about bringing that from here to there, it's like
No,
that'd
they-
take an hour.
Well, this is just easy because you can do it with
Yeah.
the leg on, with the head up.
Right.
And if you go behind, this with that, you don't have to put the head down. You don't have to do anything because
Yeah.
that'll reach far enough. It'll pick up all the weight from the back end. So
Yeah, when I go from upstairs to downstairs, I'm just assembling and folding it up.
my game room is up in the second story of my outbuilding, my barn.
Yeah,
Um,
going up the steps.
so I have one up there, and then I have one downstairs for the games I move in from the truck to work on in my space. But it used to be back in the day, we would look at the Trading Times, the plain dealer, because there wasn't any sales of anything online, and you could buy a electromechanical pinball machine from the 60s or 70s for a couple $100, and it was working, and it was something you put in the basement, and the kids played with it, and everybody had a good time, and then eventually you get the bug, and you'd be like, well, I want one of the newer ones, I want one of the more digital ones, and then when you see the dot matrix ones, you're like, well, I want one of those, and then now you see the new Stearns and everything, and Jersey Jacks, all these toys they got on these things, they're flipping crazy.
They're very light.
But that's because if you look at in the back of a Jersey Jack, there's like one board.
Yeah.
Instead of a driver board and a CPU and a power supply and
I
everything.
have a Godzilla. To move it in, it's like
Yeah.
nothing. But the really old ones.
But yeah, they're making things lighter. I'm not agreeing with some of the things they're doing, but it's still a commercial machine, and they're still good. They're still fairly good quality.
I have a specific question. Nobody else does. I have a Williams machine that talks, right? But the voices start glitching.
Okay.
So, like, I don't know.
Which machine is it?
It's Pharaoh.
Yeah.
So the voice will just glitch.
Yeah. Well, the signal gets sent to a processor on the soundboard, and
I found soundboard. Yeah.
well, the Pharaoh and the Black Knight have a soundboard, and then next to it they have a speech board.
Okay.
One controls speech, one controls sound. But
I
the
found a
down
knob. It seems like if you turn the knob
the
one
knob,
way.
the knob is volume. You have a volume in the cabinet, but that's like a finite knob up there where you wouldn't want to adjust. The one in your cabinet would be fine adjustment. The one up there is going to give you from balls out to quiet.
Right.
So
This just started happening.
the downfall with some of those is you can't really troubleshoot a little bit of issues. When I take one of those out, I replace all the capacitors because the capacitors dry out. The problem with new pinball or old pinball machines is connectors and capacitors. Capacitors dry out, connectors burn out, connectors stop making good connection. So that has a ribbon cable that goes from their soundboard to your speech board.
There's ribbon cables all over the place.
Well, there's one that just goes right from your one board to the other one. And the sounds get processed on the chip that's on your soundboard, but then it sends the signals over to the other side to tell it which speech to play at the same time. So you can reseat the connections, pull the ribbon cable on and off, go back and forth a couple times, which cleans some of the connections.
Oh, okay.
And that way that may help some of it.
Yeah.
If you have a electronic tuner cleaner, used to be a thing, you can still buy it online. When volume knobs used to get scratchy,
Yeah, I have something that's like what's it called, conditioner or something.
when volume knobs used to get scratchy, it's the rheostat in there that the contacts get corroded.
Yeah.
And if you spray that in there and work it back and forth, a lot of times that'll take
It's
care
like
of
a
it.
lubricant for electronics.
Yeah, it cleans. It cleans and lubricates. And then
Contact cleaner.
like contact cleaner,
So I should try that on the knob.
you spray it right in the knob directly with the power off and work the knob like back and forth,
Yeah.
back and forth, back and forth. But to answer your question, I think the majority of the problems you're going to have are going to be caused by the capacitors being dried
So
out.
something needs rebuilt.
Yeah, and you can send those boards out and have somebody redo them.
Okay.
There's several guys out there. You just
Local in Ohio?
I don't know if Eugene does those. Trying to think who else. You can on Pinside. Everybody know what Pinside is?
It's
no.
talking about the machine.
Pinside is a website, and it is nothing but pinball. I mean, back when I started, we had Rec Games Pinball, which was a Google group, and it was just a news forum. There was a way to read the news forums, and there would be different questions. Pinside It's kind of got everything in one location. If you want to buy a machine, there's a section for buying them. If you want to buy parts, if you just want to read about the newest machines, if you have a Judge Dredd and you want to join a Judge Dredd club, there's a Judge Dredd club. And everybody in there will be talking about what they did to their Judge Dredd, their problems with their Judge Dredd, or how this Judge Dredd works and whatever. So Pinside is a wealth of knowledge. So in addition to typing in, Williams, soundboard repair, there'll be other people that had the same problem.
Oh, you
And
just go through.
that's usually where I start and I look, because they'll say, hey, mine was scratchy or mine was stuttering, and this is what I did. So other than pulling chips out, which I don't think any of those are socketed, the ROM chips might be socketed.
Seems like they are.
For the sound, because it was made for different games. Black Knight used the same one, Pharaoh used the same one. What are the 4 games that are 2-level? Pharaoh, Black Knight. I want them in my collection. I just don't have them.
It's like early 80s.
Oh, Vector was
Vector was one. There was another one. Either way, they all use the same sound speech board. It was the System 7 style speech board is what it was.
So if you find somebody talking about Black Knight, it might be the same issue.
Yeah, Black Knight would be the same one. There's actually 4 games in that same family, but it is a System 7 Williams. So even if you just typed in System 7 Williams, but most of the time, most people have a problem with their soundboard. They don't know it's a System 7, so they'll type in Pharaoh or they'll type in Black Knight, whatever. But there'll be a wealth of knowledge on there. But the other thing you can do is, like, if you carefully take like a pocket knife and the 2 ROM chips that are pushed into their socket, if you take your knife underneath and just gently like twist it back and forth and wiggle it up and down a little bit, if you can get the chip to carefully come out
So
of it,
they're not socketed, they're just kind of seated.
they're pushed in.
Yeah.
Other ones are soldered to the board. But since that soundboard was used in many different games, they didn't do it at the factory. They didn't solder the rounds in and say, well, okay, this one goes to Black Knight. They just left those 2 where you can just push your chips in. Now this one's a Black Knight chip. Now this one's a Pharaoh chip. So sometimes the legs on the chips get to the point where they're corroded or not making good, they're not making good contact. And I usually just take my pocket knife and I just kind of just scrape the legs of the chip real carefully because they're gentle, and then put it right back in the same position. Make sure the dot is facing the same way it was when you took it out, because that's important, and just push it back in again.
Okay.
And then that could solve your problems as well. It's called reseating chips is what they call it. But on Pinside, there is a wealth of knowledge. If you use it a lot and you start selling games on it or buying games on it, they may ask you to donate some money. When I was using it all the time, I could give them like $20 a month just because I like their service. But it is quite a wealth of knowledge. In addition to what else, the rest of the internet, when you come into typing pinball repair. I mean, the reason I taught myself how to fix these was a guy named Clay Harrell in Michigan wrote some repair guides, and it was like fixing pinballs for dummies. And it says, okay, you have a pinball machine and it's not working, start here. Do this, and this, and your pinball machine work. And then it get down to the next paragraph. It's okay, you were too lazy to do all that. At the very least, do this, and see what happens. So there is still some links to some of those guides out there, and they will cover some basic problems. There's also a thing called Pin Wiki, WIKI, and you type in some of your problems, you look through some of the problems on those, and it'll tell you exactly the different systems and what to check. And you start checking voltages, because a lot of times voltage problems cause a lot of issues. But yes, your soundboard is probably going to be a capacitor issue or a connector issue as well. It's funny, I have like 1 or 2 of those sitting on my workbench right now, which makes it nice because I have a Black Knight and a Pharaoh sitting next to each other. So if I have issues with one, I can swap back and forth to figure out where my issue lies. And I try and do that with all my games. I used to have like one of every system around: Gottlieb, System 80, Williams, Bally Midway, just so that if I was working on your game at your house and I had to fix a board, take your board home, I could plug it into my game when I got home once I repaired it and make sure it was functioning, so I didn't have to make 2 trips out to your house to see if it worked. You know what I mean? So
you can get the Clay's files at pinrepair.com still.
I knew a lot of the EM stuff was still there.
Yeah, no, I'm looking at it right now. It looks like it's slowly.
There was a mirror site over in the UK that used to publish a lot of them. Years ago, I printed them off. I didn't know they were going away, but at one time they went away, and it was all because Clay posted this information, and it was great of him to do so, to teach us how to work on these machines, because If it doesn't work, you know, if you're having trouble with your flippers, check this out. You're having trouble with your sound, look here, check your voltage, and pictures, color, schematics, where to put the wire leads. Well, somebody got a case of the red ass because they contributed some of the information that was in there, and Clay did not cite everybody that helped him, you know, over the years. You know, well, I taught him this, or these are my pictures, and I did this, and then there was some kind of he got pissed off and says, you know, you're going to nitpick me on my guides. I'm just going to take them down, and he just took them down altogether. So if you say they're back up, I haven't looked in a while, but
Yeah, and I do, you know, source them sometimes.
I started with my parents had a 1965 Gottlieb single player called Buckaroo, and it's got the back glass where there's a horse, and when you get 100 points, the horse kicks the guy and he tumbles around on the back glass, and you're trying to light up A, B, C, D to get a special. It's got roto targets that turn, and you're trying to light up numbers 1 through 9, and if you get 4 of them in a row, you get a free game. But it was in our basement when I was a kid, and it quit working sometime in the 80s. And I kept asking my dad if, you know, he could get somebody to come fix it, because we used to love to play it. And he's always, yeah, I'll find somebody. We could never find anybody to fix it. So years later, my brother took over the house, and he wanted a Terminator 2, because when he went to chef school in PA, the bar down the street had a Terminator 2, and that's all him and his buddy did every night was play Terminator. So he didn't have internet. I found him a Terminator. We didn't know shit about pinball machines. We brought it home in the bed of my truck, on its legs, with the head up just like that. You didn't know how to fold down the leg. You know, we didn't know how to fold down the head. We didn't know how to strap it down. We didn't know how to take the legs off. I'm like, we looked like a bunch of idiots. But when we got to the house, I told him, I says, hey, do you mind if I take that old Buckaroo pinball machine from down in the basement and bring it back to my house? I'm going to look at it and see if I can, you know, figure it out. So I brought it home, and I found Clay's repair guides on repairing EM games. And a week later, it was up and playing. And then a week after that, it had all new rubbers and light bulbs, and it played like a brand new machine. Your electromechanical machines have contacts. They're not circuit boards. There's switches, and there's motors, and there's stepper units that make contact. The trouble is, if you put it in a game in a basement and you leave it sit and you don't play it, the contacts don't close and they get corroded. So the way the contacts are designed, if you keep playing the game, they open and close, and it's like they rub each other, and they keep themselves clean. And the more you play the game, the better it's going to stay. If you don't, the moisture builds up on the contacts. Then when they go to close, the switch doesn't even know it's closed, and then the game's just not going to function. And if you looked at Clay's guides back in the day on the EM site, it used to say that, you know, if every switch on your electromechanical pinball is properly adjusted and cleaned, there is no reason in the world why that game should not work. And it's basically true. But with the EM machines, it's so much more work. It takes me 40 or 50 hours of my time sometimes to go through all the switches and all the contacts just to clean them and get them working. Whereas if this goes down, chances are I got a board in my shop I just pop a new board in, and bingo, it's back to working again. The EMs usually don't cost you any money, but the more players it is, the harder it is, and the later the game was, like in the 70s, the more numbers there were per players, 20,000, 30,000, 50,000, 100,000, the more reels there are, because the grease that they use to lubricate those reels over the years from the 70s until now has turned into like a glue. And you turn on an old machine that's been in somebody's basement, and you try and turn it on, and the reel just click. It may move if it moves at all. And the way those are designed, they have to reset back to zero all your scores before the game will begin its startup sequence. And if the score reels won't reset to zero, the game will never start. So when I get an old EM game in, the first thing I do is start with the score reels and pull them apart, count the turns on the spring, pull the reel apart, take Q-tips and alcohol, and clean all the grease out of the shafts, out of everywhere where the wheels turn, and to clean the switches, and then put them all back together one by one. And it's such a tedious process. I usually have to take a Sharpie and mark each one I've done with an X, because I'm not going to get them all done today. And I'm going to go to dinner, and I'm going to come back out, and I'm going to be like, which one was I on again? And I won't remember, so I just need to make sure that when I finish one, I mark it with an X. And once you go through all those, then you can go through the rest of the switches and the stepper units, because they're all using the same grease. And if they won't reset properly, the game won't start. And It's just time consuming. Whereas these are easier because they're electronic, and you can label it down to one section that's bad, and maybe it's a board, maybe it's a wiring problem or a switch problem. These are so much better with the diagnostics, where you can tell the row of switches and which one is not functioning, whether it's a whole row or whether it's a single switch that's bad. You can look at the matrix and test each one individually in the switch test. There's so much more diagnostic on these. It's crazy. And then with the new ones, I can't even imagine how many different settings are on the new ones for flippers nowadays, Marvin. There's like 4 different settings for strength of flippers, or
like you can go from whatever 70 to 200.
right. I mean, back in the day, you wanted a flipper starter, you had to change the coil or bump the voltage somehow. In the old EM games, we used to high tap it, they called it. If you were in a location that the voltage was low and say it was like 110 instead of 120, there was a wire on the transformer, and if you unsired it and put it on the next tap over, it would bump the voltage up because it was compensating for you having low voltage to begin with. But if your voltage was fine, it just sent more voltage to every coil, so your flippers would be snappier and they'd have more power. So I feel like I'm the one doing all the talking. Who else has a question or concern?
So for like basic maintenance, is it recommended to like every year or every other year to like have somebody come out and service it?
It depends on what you got going on. If you've got one of these, I highly recommend buying a good quality Carnauba wax and some soft microfiber towels. And depending on how much you and your family play it, familiarize yourself with the lockdown bar, how to get the glass off, and just cleaning and waxing the play field. That's like the number one concern with these, is to make sure that you're getting the dirt and the crap off the play field, because the ball will actually wear the artwork off to the point where the artwork is gone on your play field. So if you keep it clean and waxed, it plays better. But unless you're having a problem with the game, I mean, I'll come to your house and I'll play the game, and unless your flippers feel weak, or a switch is constantly acting up where it's not kicking properly, there's no reason to have somebody come out every year.
What do you find a decent deal on a machine, but the playfield wasn't maintained and the paint's chipped or it's got grooves in it?
Well, starting in the 90s, late 80s, early 90s, Williams learned that the operators that were putting these games at the bars and the carry out, the coffee shops, they didn't give a shit about the game. As long as it was taken in quarters, it could be a blank piece of wood. They didn't care. So, but everybody else was like, holy crap, I can't even see the artwork anymore because it's wore off. So they started doing what they call a diamond plate or a clear coat to protect the artwork so that it doesn't wear out anymore. It's still better that you keep it clean and waxed, because it will wear through that clear coat and it will eat the paint in the areas that are high traffic areas. So the only time you're going to have issues with having a game where the playfield and artwork is wore off and maybe getting a deal on it would be one of these that was overseas somewhere and nobody ever showed it any love and it's completely destroyed, the playfield, or games from the 80s that, again, they weren't cleaned and waxed properly, so the paint is wore off the playfield. Our buddy Keith works with a company called Hardtop, Outside Edge. Is that what it's? Outside Edge, Hardtop?
Yes.
They've developed a product, and it's a thin plastic sheet that has all the artwork on it already. And what you basically do is you take everything off the playfield and you sand the whole playfield down and take all the artwork off. And then you put clear coat on the insert, like brush on some clear coats over the inserts where the lights come up through. And then you put this thing down, and it's like having a brand new playfield. Okay. Because the other option is, like, I had one of these and I used it for parts because it was only worth $800 as a Judge Dredd, and it was missing all the boards, and the boards were going to cost me $500. So I turned it into a virtual pinball and I sold everything off the playfield, and then I sold the playfield to a guy in Michigan. You find a new old stock playfield or find a decent playfield. Now your problem is you need to take everything off this one and put it on that one. All the switches, all the coils, all the light sockets, all the wiring, and it's an extremely daunting task.
Yeah.
A lot of work, very tedious.
Right. I did my Black Knights. I had a buddy of mine clear coat my Black Knights, and it was a decent playfield to begin with, and now it's got like 7 coats of clear coat on it. It's never going to wear out, and it looks great. And Black Knight is not as populated as, say, this one is. This one has ramps and switches and much more than Black Knight ever had, and it still took me like 3 or 4 days of working 10 hours a day to get everything transferred over onto onto the different plywood and put in my game.
What's your personal technique for taking it apart? Do you just take a ton of pictures? How do you label this stuff to know where it's going to go bad?
I take pictures. I use masking tape and a Sharpie. I wrote on the new playfield on the bottom in pen what the wire colors were and what light socket was and what it was for, because I don't care that the next guy's like, well, somebody wrote on the bottom of this playfield. I care that it works properly. You know what I mean? Now, our buddy Keith, he is meticulous. He restores pinball machines. He will make it look better than it ever came from the factory. But that level of detail and quality costs money. If you're going to own pinball machines, you either need to learn how to fix them, or you need to have money to pay somebody to fix them.
These are pictures of this game.
Oh, when it was getting
Andy over there, he actually restored this game. This game's got it's clear coated blade field, so there's some with it, bare wood just sitting there, and then they're mixed up in there. But that's the pictures that you get.
When I'm taking one apart and I'm taking
It shows different stages.
I'll take
taking
pictures
apart,
with
putting
the
them
plastics
together.
on it.
right,
And you
He
take
has
the
lots
plastics
of body
off of the
shops.
ramps.
right.
You take another layer of
Well,
pictures.
and now pictures don't need to be developed. They can be on your
Well,
phone.
that's what I'm saying.
So you can take as many as you want. There's nothing limiting you for taking pictures. And then if you forget a picture of a certain area, chances are, either on Pinside or online, somebody has already restored a Judge Dredd, and they have restoration pictures where they took a bunch of pictures, and you can say, oh, that's where that post goes, or that's where that switch goes, is right here. So it used to be you had to have a real photographic memory, or write things down, take a lot of notes. But
That's not an easy game to take apart.
oh no, this one's
This is compared to a Stern nowadays. I mean, like a Stern, you can probably take it apart in an hour, half hour. This thing.
if I had my
all day.
if I had my choice, I will buy 20 of these before I would buy a new Stern. The Bally Williams quality, it just couldn't be matched. And some of the titles are just incredible titles. I'm not saying the Sterns are bad. Some of their titles are cool. Some of their games are cool. I like the Godzilla. I played it at his house. I like Godzilla. I like a lot of the new music pins, but I have a soft spot for the Bally Williams style
I
games.
think the best ones to learn on starting out is these Bally and Stern from the 80s.
Oh yeah.
You can get all the boards now.
Oh yeah.
And,
I have a Muhammad Ali.
They're affordable.
Well, I have a Muhammad Ali, and that's 1980.
Yeah.
Stern. And the good thing about those particular games is that from 77 to 84, they all use the same boards. They're all identical. Didn't matter whether it was a Bally or a Stern. You could use any of those boards in any game from 1977 to 1984. So I have one I'm working on now. I just got it working. It's a Bally. It's X's and O's. It's like a tic-tac-toe game. It's a 4-player. It's from the 80s. It's got a lot of cool sounds. And when I'm done with it, I'll probably sell it for like $1,700. We clean, wax, rubbered, everything will be nice and new. So it's working now, but I haven't gone through and done the cosmetic parts of cleaning it all up yet. So
How common are wiring diagrams? Is that something that comes
Every-
from standard, or
when
is
you-
it vary?
when this game came out, they gave you a manual.
That's what I thought.
They gave you a manual and they gave you a schematics drawing. We have enough of them. We have enough of them that.
Oh.
Well, and they also have a. There's also a WPC schematic manual that will tell you.
The wiring diagram is really toward the end.
Your wiring is usually not your issues for the most part. Usually your issues are going to be switches or coils. And they put a switch and a coil chart right in the head here. Before he closes that up, eventually you guys should all look at that because it's very informative. It tells you which board is which. There's rows of switches, and then it tells you every coil and which fuse controls every coil. And all that information is handy right there, so you don't have to have the manual with
Like
you.
the lamp matrix page too, just
Yeah.
useful information.
How many games you guys got now?
20, 21, maybe.
Okay.
Right
Which,
in the room.
recently, new ones? No?
You produced recently?
Oh, yeah, like the newest, what's the newest game you guys bought?
This one we have is House of Horrors.
The new, Wire. You like that one?
Yeah, and then we got a Guns N' Roses LED, and
Do you, as far as playing the gameplay versus Scared Stiff, House of Horrors is equal, better?
think it's good.
But I'm a fan of Elvira and the Party Monsters, but I'm a System 11 guy, so
Elvira games too,
Yeah,
but-
well, most of our stuff is System 11s.
right, me too.
Um, the newer the game, it's more fun, more detailed.
Right,
But you're going to pay for that.
right.
And then I think more.
Well, it's funny because years ago, I wanted a Medieval Madness, and Frank and I were just talking about this. We used to go to the Columbus auction, and maybe a Twilight Zone and Adam's Family would be like $2,500, and a Medieval Madness was like $4,000. And I'm like, there is no way in hell I am ever paying $4,000 for a fucking pinball machine.
Right? Never gonna do
Well,
it.
that's how we were. We were just buying, everything late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, I bought what I could afford, and if I liked it, I kept it. If I didn't like it, I'd fix it up, clean it up, and I'd sell it, and I'd use that money to go buy something else. And I started with, $100, $200, $300 games, and I just kept working my way up. And after 25 years, and some hard work and some good luck, I've had some top tier titles in my excuse me, in my collection.
Yeah, there was a time where we're never going to spend and afford to do a pinball machine. That's just insane money. But at the point of, we're in the hobby for about 8 years at this time. We're like, I think it's time we step up and we invest and get our first brand new machine.
I remember when I really wanted a fun house, and I was like, I would never spend $5,000 on a pinball machine.
So we bought one for half the cost, but literally half the game wasn't functioning.
Right. I really got an incredible deal on mine, and mine belongs in a museum. It doesn't belong in my dirty barn. It belongs in a museum somewhere because the guy that had it before me went over the top with the restoration. It is crazy. Everything he could possibly chrome, he chromed. He spent money like crazy on that game. And I've been debating because I haven't played the Rudy's Revenge or Rudy's Nightmare or whatever the.
Come over,
kit in
come over.
ours.
We have it in ours.
Oh, and the other thing I was looking to look at that for my Whirlwind too, because I know they make that other game for the Whirlwind that does both. And I've got an old beater Whirlwind. My thought process was my funhouse is so nice, I didn't want to modify it. I almost want another one to put that stuff in. You know what I mean?
We were doing a playfield swap on our funhouse anyway, so that was just like.
Yeah, I mean mine is already mint. The only thing I'd be changing whatever you guys are putting on, whatever the new stuff is, but it's almost like it's like a classic car.
Yeah, no, leave it.
It's like a classic car. I don't want to modify it and change it. You know what I mean? But
Spend that money and time on a different game.
But my Whirlwind is a player's quality junker. Years ago I paid like $1,800 for it, so I wouldn't bother doing that. But what's funny is I bought 19 games years ago from Jersey Jack before he became Jersey Jack, the pinball manufacturer. He was Jersey Jack, the shady New Jersey game room guy that sold you your games to put in your basement. And I bought 19 games from him for $14,500 and made a 20-hour bonsai round trip to Jersey on a trailer and brought back 19 games, 6 in my truck and 13 of them strapped to a trailer. I have a picture in my game room, and I had to call buddies at 3 a.m. to come help me unload them and get them in the house or get them in the garage because it was going to rain and I didn't want to leave them out of the friggin' trailer. But there was 3 getaways, 3 fun houses, 3 whirlwinds, two Guns N' Roses. So there was some really good titles in there. So, but back then I was I redid the whirlwinds and I sold them for like $1,300. This was early 2000s, so 20-something years ago. The prices, I'm glad to see some of the prices are actually starting to come back down again because it's starting to get to the point where you're pricing new people completely out of the hobby. I'm just as guilty. I paid like $6,500 for my Metallica, but it was number 500 to 500. It was the very last one off the line, and I was in a bind for money. I just got in a divorce, and I needed money to pay the bills. I got in a car wreck, and somebody came by and gave me $17,500 for my Metallica, and I'm like, take it. Take it away.
Right.
Are these your Yopsicles?
They are.
Your little LED lights?
Yep.
You make these?
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah, about 5 years ago.
I've seen them advertised. I've just never used them.
Yeah. So I mean, I brought some with me.
Yeah.
So since you're working on a valley,
Oh, well, thanks.
yeah, you're welcome.
No, you can put these in like a valley without having to change and put the resistor boards or
That's correct. You use the original light board.
right, because that was always a problem with
Make the
those
whole
was
socket.
because it uses instead of using the transistor, it uses the valley board uses the what do they call it?
SCR.
Yeah,
Yeah.
silicone controlled rectifier, whatever. Yeah, and the SCRs you always had to put some kind of resistor in there to make LEDs work.
Right. So that's got the resistor already added.
All right.
So you'll
Well,
put
I
that
know
in.
the GI wasn't a problem, but the control lighting was a problem. So that's what you use these on the control lighting.
Correct.
Yeah, because you're not going to see them underneath the play field anyways. Also, and that slot allows you to
Yeah, it goes right where the old socket.
so you can
comes
just
out.
move the light underneath there.
Yep.
Well, these are actually pretty badass.
But that's for the playfield or
Underneath, well, yeah,
underneath?
except like, see now your newer games like these, they already had. Back in the day, each insert had a socket with a light bulb.
Yeah.
And it was just for that insert.
I'm thinking about a valleys I have from the 80s.
Yes.
It's like
Yeah, but
pushing-
where you have an individual socket, that's where you would take that off. And there's a plus and a minus on here.
Oh, okay.
And you want to look at it? Here. You just solder your wire, and then where that screw, you just put the screw in.
Here, I've got some loose ones. I already broke these apart.
So this just doesn't go into the fixture; it's already there. The little.
No, you pull that fixture off, and
Yeah.
you change the wires, and you put the positive on the positive, and you put the ground on the screw,
Yeah.
and that the yellow part is your LED.
Right. That's the light. Yeah.
No, so I did. I just did design
And
them,
they're a lot brighter.
and then
Now,
PCB way or
I have not used these yet.
Right.
So this is like the
Kind
ground
of old
contacts.
school. I don't
that
say
goes
old school.
through
I like
here,
LEDs,
creates the contact.
but when I do my LEDs,
actually not a ground.
I color match.
That's the
If the
positive.
insert is
So
red,
the screw goes
I'll
through
put a
and
red
that's
LED bulb in. If it's blue, I put a blue. If it's green, I put a green. If it's white, yellow, or orange, I put a white bulb
And
in
they like
the LED.
go for
And I usually leave the
as long as I
general illumination, I leave it alone in incandescence, but the control lighting I change to the LEDs because it makes it pop.
Create the circuit.
I know on my Pharaoh, the playfield is just really dark. I like to have some kind of a spotlight just to like brighten the whole thing up.
Well,
I haven't really
for
done
that,
anything.
you might be able to do the Pin Stadium lights. They're
You
called
mean
they're called Pin
It's
Stadium.
like a big
It's a
spotlight.
it's a strip. It's two strips actually, and it runs down one side, it runs down the other side, and you can mount it up off of some posts.
So it's really just right where the guy's head is. That
Right.
whole playfield is like dark.
Right, but just look up Pin Stadium.
Okay, you're talking about
It-
going
it's,
down the side of the machine.
yeah, but it'll be on top. It'll be above your ramps. It'll be above your play field.
Yeah.
And you just kind of put them in, and it shines the light down, and it's like there's lights like shining down. It lights up the entire play field. Yeah, Pin Stadium lighting is what they call those.
It's like a night and day difference.
Right. I mean, because I've done a lot of games where I put some color changing LEDs in because I like the color change, but they don't light up bright enough. You know what I mean? You can't see where you're playing, and it just doesn't work out that way. So, no, thanks. These are really cool.
Oh yeah.
Are other bulbs like being stepped down to 12 volt like a car then or something?
No, most of them. It depends on your general illumination is actually an AC. Usually 7 volts. It runs on AC.
Okay.
Usually a 44 or a 47 is a round base bulb, whereas a 555 is a wedge base bulb where it pushes in with just pushing them in. Now your LEDs can be different as well, different voltages, but nowhere near a 12 volt.
So the transformer still is doing like
Yeah, the transformer still for your general illumination, it puts out your lines on this game are an AC voltage, and there'll be 4 circuits, 2 on the head up there, and then 2 on the play field down here. When it goes to being controlled lighting, where the computer controls it, then it becomes DC,
Okay.
where the CPU controls your lighting, and it sends DC voltage because it powers all the bulbs all at once, and the only thing the computer's doing at that time is turning off the ground.
Yeah. that
So
makes sense.
it turns up. So all your bulbs have one power line that runs through them,
You just have a common.
and then you just have a common that shuts it off. And that's basically how these work. You know what I mean? All your power lines are going to be on one line, and then you're going to shut off your ground.
Yeah.
So the CPU controls which one are going to come on at the time. So the problem with the early Valleys was they always had a silicone controlled rectifier, and they worked well with a regular bulb, because there was some resistance in the regular bulb, and they would actually, the way silicone controlled rectifier works, it shuts it on and off, but it's not like a regular transistor. It required that resistance. So
Yeah.
when you had an early Bally, like an Evil Knievel or or like my Muhammad Ali, my Stern, you couldn't change to LEDs if you wanted to put LEDs in there. You had to either put a resistor board in, or you had to change the lamp driver board to an aftermarket board, or now in this case you can use this gentleman's.
Right.
Is there a price point on these?
Yeah, well, it depends. If you buy them from Comet, I want to say they're about 90 cents a piece.
Okay.
Which versus replacing a socket and an LED bulb, because the socket is going to cost you what, $1.50?
Well, and what's great then is that if you've got good working sockets, you take those off and you put them in your toolbox. So when you have a game that has a bad socket,
Yeah,
you can change
do
it.
that as well. So, and I sell them on Pinside as well, and they're about 90 cents a piece.
Wow.
Marco has them, but they're a little pricier through them.
Well, in that case,
You're right.
Just a couple more.
I haven't worked in 2 years.
So yeah, but that's what they cost. So the sheet's about $45.
Okay.
That's a sheet for 50.
Yeah, I got buddies coming over tonight to come hang out my game room. I was in a car wreck 2 years ago, and then 3 years ago, and then 2 years ago, a tree fell on my house and crushed half my house. And I lived in a hotel for a year with a broken leg, and my game room is the second story of my outbuilding, my barn, and between my leg being messed up and my buddies not coming over, and me living in a hotel and not even being at my house, I don't even know if my game room is still up there. I haven't been up there. I haven't checked on it.
Yeah.
I used to have about 20 pinball machines, a skee ball, a jukebox, I'm hoping all that stuff is still there. Get paid by the hour or by the tower, man? What's going on over here?
Trying to make this Stern bracket's not quite the same.
Not quite the same.
No,
So your Judge Dredd might be. I've got him
trying
at home,
to
but I'm
make,
not
I
coming.
do too.
I'm not coming back.
With soldering, this is kind of
Try to
general
make
question,
it-
but soldering, like when do you know you have to solder something? Like
Well, like this.
what do you solder?
Well, solder is an iron that heats up, and the solder melts at a certain temperature. And once you put the soldering iron,
Thank you so much.
oh,
We're gonna
anytime.
go play some games.
Yeah, knock yourself out. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
Yeah.
The soldering iron will heat up that terminal and that wire, and it'll eventually melt to the point where you can separate the wire from whatever you got it soldered to. Like Marvin's got these coils hanging here, and right now we don't have to resolder them because he's just going to put that coil back in, leaving the wires hanging. But if that coil was bad, or if you bought a new mechanism that had a new coil and you wanted to use the new coil, you would have to heat up each individual one and then solder it to the new one, adding some new solder as you go to fill in the hole. And sometimes, like in this case, you would actually need like a third hand because you're trying to hold the wire in the soldering iron and you're trying to hold it on the coil at the same time. And sometimes it doesn't work. You need to set it somewhere where you can actually work on it. The other thing that you need to know with soldering is that like soldering lugs on a coil takes a lot more heat than soldering a connection to one of these light boards or to a circuit board. So if you're going to get into soldering, you're going to do some work, it's best to have like a temperature controlled soldering iron because in circuit boards, you don't want to put too much heat through the board. You'll actually ruin traces and start ruining components on the board if you put too much heat into them. Whereas a lot of times, if I'm going to be changing flipper coils, I've got a Weller soldering gun. You're not going to hurt the coil by heating it up with a gun. And then I just bought a Makita. Plug your battery into it, and it's got
We have a Ryobi one.
it's got a cord, and I'm thinking that'd be great. I'm thinking that'd be great for like I could set it right here, and I don't have to worry about finding 120 or putting my soldering station somewhere. I haven't tried it yet. It's in the box, but
Our Ryobi one, it's not the greatest, but
Does it heat up pretty good?
It's
I've got
okay.
a
It works.
Yeah, I got a Chinese Norton. It's it'll be real hot for a second, and then it'll cool off for a little bit and not be great.
I mean, a lot of times I bring my entire toolbox here, and I have my desoldering gun that shows you how you can unsolder chips off a board. And if you set the temperature right, and you add more solder to each one before you do it, you can just right down the line and remove a chip in like less than a minute and still save the chip. In the old days, I didn't have a desoldering gun, so I'd use like a solder sucker, or if you didn't care about the chip, you would just cut the legs with a cutoff wheel and then just unsolder each like individual to pull them out of your board, and then clean the holes out so you can put your new chips in. But for the most part, pinball machines, if you're not, you don't have to do board work, but sometimes a wire breaks off a switch, and that switch may be the first one or the middle one in a row of switches. So at that point, every switch behind that one isn't going to work anymore until you put it back on. So if you've got a switch that's not working, you look at your switch chart and you say, hey, it's the green and red line versus the brown and blue line, and you see it's got 6 different switches. You can follow those wire colors to each one of those switches, and just when you get to each switch, just look at it real quick and then just pull it and make sure it's still attached to the switch. Because a lot of times the solder will just break right off from vibration, and it'll look like it's connected, but it's not. And you're like, oh, well, that's why the rest of my switches aren't working. You know what I mean? So, and then in that case, you just need a little bit of strip the wire, just a little bit of heat from a soldering iron and some solder, and just once it's on there, you can blow on it when you take the heat away, and it'll solidify and your wire will stay where it's supposed to be. So
okay.
you can also use like alligator clips to kind of hold the wire in position so that you're not trying to solder it in. You know, another good trick that I do is I take my soldering iron and I'll put some solder on the tip already, so that all I got to do is hold the wire and then the iron, and I bring it right in together, and then it'll melt together. The other thing I do is I use a soldering paste, and it's a flux that you put on the wire, and it just makes things makes the wire heat up faster. It cleans it, and it helps it solder like right now. So soldering paste, a good solder. I mean, I started with a Radio Shack, 35 watt, stupid. Plug it in, no temperature, just. But once I started doing board work, I had to get a little bit more. I had to get a little fancier. So.
Well, and sometimes you need a finer tip too.
Yeah, my board, the one I use for my circuit boards, is a really fine tip. My problem is with my desoldering gun. I bought a Hacko 300, and it's got 3 different tip sizes for whether you're doing the small pins, bigger pins, or chip legs. My problem is that sometimes the solder gets stuck in the tip. It doesn't get sucked all the way in, and then I gotta shut the gun off, let it cool down, get the livid cleaning tool, get a drill bit, clean it all out. You know what I mean? Sometimes the solder has a tendency to stick to it, and it doesn't work as well as I'd like it to.
Like it cools down too fast.
And I bought the new filters. I've had to buy new tips because they get all screwed up. But again, it's better than using the sucker plunger. Or I still got it on my safe. It's in my front room. It's a soldering iron with a squeeze ball, and you would squeeze the ball, put it on there, and then release it, and it would suck the solder out.
Yeah.
But I tried everything when I first started working on pinball machines. I tried everything. Yeah, one day everybody was talking on Pinside about the Hacko 300, and I'm like, there was some kind of sale, and it was $50 off, and I'm like, because they're expensive, $300 or something.
Probably around 300.
Yeah, and I'm like, fuck it. For as much work as I do, I'm just buying it, and I did. So.
And then for this contraption, you put one end on the playfield where you think, or where you're investigating, and then one on the.
It depends on to use a multimeter. You have to know what you're looking for. A multimeter would test for voltage. It'll test for continuity to see if the wire is broken somewhere. If you know where both ends of the wire are, you can use it for that. It'll test whether a switch is actually functioning, open and closed. And the way they do that, even the cheap ones, you can buy one at Harbor Freight. This happens to be an amp probe. It's probably $100. It's probably $100 meter. Well, when you're checking for continuity, say you got 2 wires that come to a switch, and you want to open and close the switch to see if it's working. You don't even have to look at this because that's making contact, that's not making contact. So if you have it on your switch and you're closing it and it's not working, the switch is bad.
Okay.
There's red and black because there is a positive and a negative, and there is DC voltage and there is AC voltage, and it's all going to be on your meter to turn it to whatever you're looking for. But see, this one goes to 4. It'll be 40, 400, 750. Your wall is 120. So if you turn it on 40 and I stick this in there, it's going to go weep, 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 weep because it's too much voltage. So you got to know what you pretty much have to have an idea of what you're looking for. But on a pinball machine, it'll tell you your coils and your circuits. And the coils work the same way that the lighting does. The coils have power when the game is on all the time. The only time that coil will fire is when the board completes the ground circuit. Electricity has to have a complete circuit of flow for it to function. So until the board grounds that coil, it won't fire. But every coil on that playfield, if you look at some of the coils, they're going to be 45 volt coils. Some are going to be 75 volt coils, depending on the power and the strength they need. But you can check. You can put this on a ground braid in the cabinet. There's a ground braid that runs all the way around, and you can check your coils and see if you got power. If you don't, then you look at your fuse chart and you say, hey, that coil goes to fuse such and such. And then you come over here and you say, hey, let's put it on continuity. And you grab that fuse, you pull it out, and if it does that, because sometimes you can't tell by looking whether the fuse is blown. You always need to test them. So if you do that, and then you know the fuse is good, and you got another problem somewhere else down the line. The other way to do it, I just found out, it was really cool, is like if you take your iPhone or your Android phone, whatever, and you have a fuse in your hand, you don't have a meter, you can go to your keypad, and you can put the fuse on here, and put your finger on the other end. And if it doesn't push the number for the 5, then you know there's no continuity between the two. Because all that fuse is doing is taking your finger and putting it between you or your finger and the keypad. And if it's good, it'll actually light up the number 5 because that's the one you're touching. If it's not, you know that the fuse is blown. Because all it does is it's just breaking the path of your finger touching your 5. So if you don't have a meter handy and you need to check a fuse, that's how you can do it. But so to use the meter, a lot of times when I get a new pinball machine in and somebody maybe put a fuse that was too heavy, 10 amp fuse where a 3 amp fuse should go, then the coils may have gotten smoked. Resistance on coils should be anywhere from 4 ohms to 12 ohms. So then you go on your resistance setting, which is the one that looks like a horseshoe, and the lowest one is 400. And you put one lead on one, shut the machine off, put one lead on one end of the coil, one lead on the other end of the coil, and it will tell you what the ohms is. If it reads like less than 3, 2, 1, 0, the coil is internally shorted and it's no good anymore. And that's a lot of times when people overfuse a game and a coil gets smoked, not only will it take out the coil, but it will take out the transistor that drives that coil and fires it. So now you're into a bigger situation than just replacing the coil.
Why would someone do that to their game?
Well, a lot of homeowners, okay, in pinball machines, we have like 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, 8 amp fuses for the most part. Very, very rarely will you see a game that has over an 8 amp fuse. And a lot of them are what they call slow blow fuses because it may be at 3 amps. We don't want it to blow right away if it's reading 3.5. You want to give it a chance to maybe hang on. But it's a glass fuse. It's sitting right there on the board. Most homeowners don't have access to it.
That means a slight blow.
Right. But most regular homeowners don't have 2, 3, 4, 5 amp fuses because in a car, when you looked at a 2, 3, or 4 or 5 amp fuse, it was a little tiny. These pinball machines, they're like a regular size fuse. So they go out to their dad's garage, and dad's got a pack of fuses from his old, 68 Mercury, and there's 10s and 20s and 30s. But they're the same glass fuse, and they're the same size, and if they put it in and their game working, it was just a fuse. We fixed it. Another thing is a lot of times people don't know what fuse is supposed to be there. Now this game has the chart.
Are they typically not labeled on the fuses?
Yeah, but a lot of times they're hard to see. Sometimes the newer ones from overseas, the marking isn't real deep. I'm 57 now. The older my eyes get, the more I gotta take a picture of stuff or get out readers to look at it. But this chart that's in here, it will tell you your circuits and your coils and your fuses, as well as in the manual. It'll tell you that's a 5 amp, 5 amp, 5 amp, 7 amp, 8 amp, 8 amp, 3 amp, 4 amp. And it'll also say whether it's fast blow or slow blow or normal blow. So these are all in here. Where they run into problems a lot of times is the general illumination circuit, the circuit that was on, all the time in the arcades would get the wires so hot that it would start to melt the connections and tarnish the connections on the board. And then it would start blowing fuses. And then people put a bigger fuse in, and it just made the problem even worse. So it's important to properly fuse the games. And if it's a game you just got, that's one of the first things I suggest you do before you even try turning it on, if you didn't know if it was working or not, is to look in the manual. Sometimes there's a card right by where the fuses are that say, sometimes it's labeled on the board what size it is, and just pull each one out, get your glasses out, look at it, make sure, because you fire that game up and somebody put a 20 amp fuse in there, now you've just caused a whole bunch of problems. So it's not like they do it on purpose. They're like, oh, I'm gonna blow my game up. They don't know.
I'm gonna go get some to eat.
Yeah, take care. Thanks. I appreciate it.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well. Thanks again for the obstacles. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're quite welcome.
See it? Come on.
Pretty cool stuff.
Yeah. Made it worth my trip down from Akron.
I wanted to talk to him about buying a couple sheets from him. And maybe
Oh,
I can
he's-
find him later.
Well, he's gonna eat. He's in the hall. I think he's selling stuff in the hall. He's got.
Oh, okay.
I think he just went out there to his booth to get these. I think is where he went to get them. I haven't even set. I got here like 4 hours ago. I haven't even set foot in the hall yet, and now I need to go because my buddies want to go to the car show tonight. So, yeah, I wish I could stay, but there's so much information nowadays. Don't be overwhelmed. You know, today I've been a mechanic all my life. If I'm going to change like my fuel pump housing on my truck, it's starting to leak. The first thing I did when I was sitting in my easy chair was I looked on YouTube and I typed in O2 GM Duramax fuel filler housing.
Right.
And sure enough, there's a video of some dude. Well, here, this is a 5/16 wrench. You need a screwdriver for this, and this is how this goes, and this is how this comes apart. And I just watch a video so that when I'm out there for the first time, it makes things easier. The same thing with pinball machines.
Plus, sometimes it's more fun to sit there for 3 hours and watch someone else do stuff before so you gain up the.
There's so much information out there on how to repair these things now compared to what there was when I started. So they found so many more things that have gone wrong with games, even since Clay originally wrote those repair guides on how to fix them. They're like, well, hey, this game has a problem with these boards because of the vibration. Like these here, they have what they call an LED trough board, where it has an optical sensor, 6 of them actually, that sense the 6 balls. There's a transmitter and there's a receiver on the other side, and it's optical, sends a beam across. And when the ball blocks the beam, the computer knows that there's a ball sitting in number 1 slot, number 2 slot, number 3 slot, number 4 slot, number 5 slot. Well, because the balls keep hammering down into that trough, and it's a steel pinball, the vibration alone started screwing up the leads on the LEDs to the point where this one, Indiana Jones, anyone that used an optical trough to sense the 6 balls, the leads were breaking off. You couldn't tell, and then it would start launching 2 balls at once. It would go into ball search because it didn't know where your balls were because it wasn't working properly. But all this information has come out recently where, hey, this game's got this problem, this game's got this problem. So don't be afraid to tackle any pinball problem because somebody's willing to help you. If you're willing to learn how to use a multimeter, learn how to use a soldering iron, you can watch videos on YouTube on how to solder. And there'll be a guy showing you how to solder, how to use flux, how to hit the solder with the right temperature of the iron. And it's just time. So like I said, if you're gonna own pinball machines, you either need to learn how to fix them, maintain them, or you need to have enough money to pay somebody to do so. And the more you can do yourself, fixing little switches, coils, things that go bad, by all means. If you get in over your head, do not touch boards. At any point in time, you're like, hey, I don't feel comfortable doing this. Don't do it, and seek somebody else out that's going to help you. I used to get stupid circuit boards that were burnt and corroded and use them to learn, to practice on, to remove chips and sockets properly so I wasn't destroying boards. Because if you put too much heat to the boards while you're working on them, you will smoke them. I don't expect anybody that's a beginner to start working on boards, but then again, I never thought I would. And here, over the years, I've learned how to do it, and now I do it. I feel comfortable. I used to send all my boards out to get done because I didn't know what I was doing. So, all good things. You guys are in Medina? Talmadge. Why did I think Medina?
I don't know.
Well, I'm just trying to think where I need to come to play
Rudy's.
Rudy's.
2.0. Yeah, Talmadge. We live near the fairgrounds.
Okay. Yeah. I used to plow snow over there for a hotel years and years and years ago. What else didn't I cover? You guys good? Ready to? Yeah.
What about propping the playfield all the way up? I mean,
Oh,
I prop mine all the way up and think like this thing's gonna fall on my head.
well, see, like this one is designed two ways. Once it latches, like he's got it latched, you can put this here, or you can, as long as you flip the balls out, you can flip that all the way forward
Yeah.
and work on it. It's going to be leaning against the back box, and it's not gonna
Yeah,
come
you
out.
just think like you're in there looking at something and
No,
it's coming
and
down my
I mean,
face.
I put my old ones that don't even have this latching system. I just put them up. If I worry about it, I take like a broomstick, you know what I mean, and stick a broomstick up in there. They actually make the auto mechanics use them. They're probably available at AutoZone. It's an extendable. It's a little extendable stick with rubber tips on either end,
Sure.
and you put it to where you want it, and then I think you just twist it, and it locks
Oh,
in
yeah.
place. And the guys at the garage, when they change your oil, they use it because they don't know if your stupid things are going to stay up. Your cylinders that keep your hood up sometimes, and they don't want the hood latch in their head, so they use those. And I'm sure the same thing. Once you get up against this edge of this cabinet, right here where the lockdown bar goes,
Yeah.
that'd be a perfect spot. And just make sure you don't put it in an insert. Just put it in a safe spot on the play field, and that would be like another safety. I've worked in basements where I could not flip it all the way up because the ceiling was in the way.
Yeah.
And then I've had to take like a bungee cord and wrap it around this part here and wrap it up into the ceiling joist just to keep it like this because it could
So you can get you.
do this. You know what I mean? So you just gotta get creative.
It's a very little basement.
My buddy Chris, Marvin's buddy too. He lives in Bay Village, and he used to have about 20 pins in his collection. But he could only fit like 4 in his basement. He had a movie room down there, and he was real funny. He would only put movie pins, like Judge Dredd would qualify, but it had to be like a theme of a movie. Had a concession booth with popcorn, had theater chairs, big screen painted on the wall, projector. But the ceiling was so low, he could put the back legs all the way down, but then he'd have to take the front ones, the levelers, off because it wouldn't clear. Some of the games he would have to put 2x4 underneath the back just to give him a little bit of angle because that's about all he could fit in there was a 2x4. Recently, I bought a Cyclone from somebody, and when they delivered it, I bought it sight unseen. When they delivered it, the legs were like 3 inches shorter than those. I was almost going to save them because for that purpose, for somebody that's got a basement that's low, or when you have kids that are too little to reach and you don't want to have to put a stool down, they could just reach. So, but yeah, I've run into a lot of places where everybody's basement is dark. I go to a service call, I can't see. There's no outlets for me to plug in my stuff. Hence why I got the Makita soldering iron because I figured that would take one less outlet. Like I have trouble light plugged in and I can see what I'm doing, but I try not to do service calls anymore because although it's lucrative, a lot of times I end up going back to the same house 2 or 3 times because something else breaks or I don't have the parts I need and I got to go home and get stuff and then come back and you get 45 minutes, an hour away from home. You don't want to make 2 trips. It's just it's difficult.
Take everything with you.
That's why in my truck I got those organizers. And there's 2 out there and. There's battery holders because I use battery holders on all my games. I don't use any batteries on the board. And there's chips, there's sockets, there's transistors, anything that could possibly go bad. I have out there. Normally I leave them at home, but when somebody calls me and says, "Hey, I've got a board problem, something isn't working right," I'll bring it all with me. If possible, I'll fix it at their house. If not possible, I'll take the board home and I'll fix it at home. I have a little stand at home that's got wing nuts, and you can mount the board in a stand on a pedestal, and you can turn it, rotate it, flip it over, work on both sides of the board all at the same time. So it makes things easier as opposed to 319. Who keeps texting me?
Thank you, appreciate all your help.
Oh, yeah, anytime, man, anytime. Yeah, any further questions? You guys are good? Yeah, look at this. Look at that chart right there up on the.
And if you do get a pin, I don't know who else is left to use it, but if you get a pinball machine, get the manual for it because all that information in there. It's very useful.
Yeah, most if your
It's not like how to set it up.
if
Like
your
actually
game
how to
doesn't
play.
have a manual, if your game doesn't have a manual, all the aftermarket pinball suppliers, they're like $25-$30. You can buy a manual.
Okay.
And it's very helpful because not only is that one page in the manual, but there's also everything you could ever know about taking every assembly apart, how they go together. There's drawings, there's diagrams, there's everything about your game is in that book. So
Gotcha. You working on arcade cabinets too? Or...
I used to, but I've been trying to get away from that too because I don't do board level repairs anymore on arcades because I don't have the chips and I'm not as good at it. I don't have any cabinets at home to test the games in to make sure they're working. You know what I mean?
I didn't know how much cross compatibility like pinball and arcade.
No, they're other than sharing some of the same chips or connectors on a board. The tube TV and a circuit board that produces data is different than the circuit boards that are in this. And there's no TV in here. There's other than some connectors and some other things, there's some similarities, but nothing really.
Thank you.
Anytime, love.
Thank you, Dan.
Yeah, anytime, love.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, man.
Thank you.
See ya. Take care.
You made it all. You made it.
A lot of good
through.
information.
You made it through.
Did you get a
It's broken.
plate?
Paul went to see if he can get one.
Oh.
It's not. It won't work. That it's actually not as wide neither.
Oh. Why would they change that?
I don't know why Stearns is doing. Maybe they can't.
See, but